Welcome to Who Are You? Uninterrupted with Felicia Hatcher. Let's get started.
All right, so my question for you this morning is, are you willing to sit in your gift long enough to actually see the payoff, right? And so that's my question. That's what I'm working on. That's what I'm studying this morning. And mostly for a few reasons, right? And so I think we talk so often about just figuring out what your gift is, what your genius is, what you're good at, like all the things. And I don't think we talk enough about like what you truly have to go through in order to stay in your gift long enough for it to pay off, right? And like that discomfort, and the pain and sometimes a struggle, right? And the disruption that you have to sit in long enough for you to actually get the payoff and what you ultimately try to get. And I think if you don't recognize that those things will happen along the journey of staying in the gift, then you'll quit short of getting whatever you want if you don't determine what is it that you want, right? And so I don't know, I know not everyone's a Chappelle fan, but I got to tell the Chappelle story. And so I don't know if anyone's watched, I think Inside the Actor's Studio. It's really old, but I recommend you go watch it. And it's this interview with Chappelle maybe about 15 years ago. And, he's telling the story of like how he got started in Hollywood and this conversation that he had with his dad when his career was just getting ready to take off. And the conversation that he had with his dad when he was getting ready to leave, his dad said to him, like, set your price. And he's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. He's like, set the price and set the line that you will not cross in order to achieve success. And so when you go out to Hollywood, you will know that if what you're chasing gets too expensive, you know when to get out and come back home. Right? And he was talking about how valuable that message was and that thing that his dad told him to do. Set the line that you are no longer willing to cross in order to achieve this thing. And I think all of us need to do that. Otherwise, you'll never know if you're getting close. Two, you'll never know when it's time for you to pivot if the thing is not working. And then the flip side of that is you'll also know that you need to stay in your gift long enough to reach that line. And when you get to that line, then you can make a decision whether you stay in it and keep going or that thing has gotten too expensive and it's time to get out. And so why am I telling you that story? It's the same thing about staying within your gift, right? Knowing what your gift is one thing. Actually saying it out loud is a whole completely other thing. And then actually putting it into practice and knowing that like, my mentor always says like disruption follows intention. And if you know that and you understand that, then you know that there are going to be trials and tribulations and all these things that happen, but you got to stay the course because whenever you set the intention to do something, you're always going to be tested. And I feel like in my personal experience, the test is going to come more ways than you can possibly imagine from all different ways. And you have to stay the course. And so are you willing to stay in your gift long enough? I think the other side of that is when you talk about staying in your gift and staying in your genius, there's all these other things that you will be pulled to do. And when you recognize what that thing is for you, then you got to surround yourself with other people in your circle, on your team that do all the other things so that you can also stay in your gift, right? So there's the distractions, the obstacles that will happen. And then there's being very smart about if I plan to stay in this thing because this is the best way that I bring my thing out. This is the best way that I super serve, my clients, my customers, my users, like my employee, whatever it is, then I got to surround myself with other people. I have to level up on the team. And I'll never forget years ago when I was working with the Timberwolves and the Lynx, and it was the 10th anniversary campaign or 10th anniversary for the Minnesota Lynx. And I was charged with putting on the big 10th anniversary event, the rebranding of it. I was new to Minnesota, so I had no contacts, no relationships. But I start long story short, I started finding some good people. Richard Moody was this guy who taught me the biggest lesson about staying in your gift and having a dope team, and you put your whole team on for each and every opportunity, right? And I didn't fully understand it. I was in my early 20s at the time, but I just needed help. And, I hired Richard to put the event on. And then there were all these other things that would pop up that we would needed. And Richard always had a person. And what I realized working on that event and kind of seeing someone stay in their gift and only stay in their gift, but part of their gift was bringing the rest of the team along for the greater good of the project that they were working on. But he was also making sure that his whole team, I was like, should I have said the guy's name out loud? His whole team was eating, right? And his whole team was benefiting, but the whole team was contributing to the larger project. I literally, as his client, got to see what that meant and what that looked like, and tried to emulate that over the years because it was the biggest lesson that I learned. And I remember at one point in time, I was like, man, like, is this man taking advantage of me? Because like every minute it's somebody, but they all know him and stuff like that. But he was not. He was helping me. He could not do everything. But what he could not do, he knew a person. And being resourceful is a gift in and within itself. I think we've been taught that we have to know how to do all the things, and we don't, right? And I think the person that assumes that they can do all the things is actually an inadequate person that you should have on your team because they can't. But the person that always knows someone that can do something, like that person becomes really, really resourceful for you because they are problem solving, but then they're also people first, right? So I learned that lesson years ago from Richard of just like, Richard's like, this is the thing that I do. And I'm going to stay in only this thing. And if I try and shapeshift into other things, I'm not going to be super serving you with my gift. It's bringing on all the right people. And yeah, there's a cost associated with that, but this is how you're going to achieve X, Y, and Z on time within budget. So it was just a really powerful lesson. And so to kind of get back to, will your gifts make room for you? And I was just kind of doing some studying this morning before I really jump into my day. But whether you read the Bible or not, right? We've heard it as kids and as adults, right? Your gifts will make room for you. And I always say you have to take it a step further, right? Your gifts will make room for you, but you got to tell it what rooms to take you in. It's not enough to just know what your gift is at all, right? Like you can know what your gift is and sit on the couch every single day and say, I know what my gift is. But if you don't activate it, if you don't apply it, it doesn't super serve you at all. It doesn't serve anyone. You just have some clarity, but your clarity has to do something, right? Like your potential that you have now, knowing your gifts has to produce profits. It has to produce something. And if it doesn't, it does no service to anyone else, right? Ava DuVernay always talks about like if your dream only includes you, you're thinking too small, you're dreaming too small, right? It should include other people. I think the same thing with your gifts. If your gift only includes you, if you are the only one that holds on to it and no one else gets to live in it and sit in it and benefit from it, then who are you really benefiting at the end of the day? And so, when I was reading like See Faith, right? It talked about like the Hebrew word translates gifts from Proverbs 18:16, which means present. And the word room means to broaden, right? And so in other words, you can read that, staying in your gifts or your gifts will make room for you as a man's presence will broaden, cause expansion, and then create opportunities for him. And on top of all of that, a man's presence will bring him before great men, because that's kind of like the full like quote of that, right? And so it will broaden you, it will cause expansion, and it will create opportunity. And I think saying that on one hand is like super motivational. And then on the other hand, that probably will scare the crap out of you. And I think for a lot of us, why we can't own truly like this is the thing that is our gift, and I say this all the time, is because once you say it out loud, you got to own that. You got to own the rest of that. You got to own every single part of that. And for some of us, we don't want to do that because we're afraid of what that means when we when we're bigger than when we are the full expansive version of who we are, there is a responsibility that's a part of that as to why some of us don't move, right? Why we self-sabotage, why we have upper limiting beliefs is that, man, if I truly do this thing at 100, then like, what does that really mean for me? And do I want to take on all the responsibility of that? And the answer should be yes, but sometimes that yes scares you because that responsibility is different, right? When you are a solo entrepreneur, you know you need to grow the business, but the only way to grow the business is building your team. And that bigness that you need to step into means that you need to be responsible for someone else's payroll. That means that like if things don't work for you, you are financially technically responsible for everybody else that you're hiring. And that step is scary as all get out. I can tell you that from personal experience from a few businesses. But you got to step into that, right? Because what happens when it does work and you never ever have to worry about like making payroll again? Like that changes things for you. But that step from you being by yourself, and if things don't work or you don't feel like doing something that day, it only impacts you is one thing, right? And that's you being in your comfort zone, and you not being in your full potential. But when you have to wake up and say, you know what, it's 15 people that depend on me. And so I gotta be up at 6. I can't hit that snooze button. I cannot not send that invoice. I cannot not show up 110% for this, presentation or this pitch because other people depend on me. Sometimes some of us need that pressure because the comfort of just only disappointing ourselves is comfortable. And I hope y'all are following what I'm saying, but it's those big steps that you have to start taking and then being willing to sit in the discomfort enough in order to see the payoffs of all the work that you've done, all the sacrifices that you've made. And that thing hurts, right? Like when you and it's so interesting, right? Because we'll read the stories from people or see them and it's always like this blimp of like it didn't work out, right? And then all of a sudden, like they IPO'd, and you're just like, wait, what happened? There didn't work out. It was like 30 seconds in the story. No, man. Sometimes it's a year. Sometimes it's 2 years. Sometimes it's like 3. Sometimes 4. There's 5 years that people are going through their go through and their struggle. There's no overnight success. I've never seen it. I've never experienced it. Like you are going to have to sit in that mess and discomfort and stress more times than you can begin to imagine. And it's ugly. It's not pretty. It's not sexy. It's nothing that you want to talk about. There are mornings where you don't even know if you want to get out of bed and you got to do that anyways. I think more of us need to share what that looks like, what that feels like of like sitting in the mess, right? Because it's really messy in the middle. And I think I was talking to a younger person, right, in their early 20s yesterday, and I was just like, "Man, I feel old saying this, but I appreciate building my first company when social media was just starting to pop off," right? Where people weren't sharing like the highlight reels and all the things that they do. You didn't really know that. I mean, you would see the stories in traditional media, but it wasn't this everyday constant like, man, I'm here working on my computer. I'm in meetings. I'm in Zooms from 8 o'clock till 6 o'clock. And every time I get on my computer or my phone, I see somebody at the beach in Tulum and like all these things. I'd much rather be there when that's a distraction. I didn't have that, right? And so I think as much as I love social media because it accelerates a lot of things and makes things easier and cheaper to like literally be a global brand if you want to, that other side of that comparison is dangerous and it's scary, right? And so like kind of like limiting your time on doing that. What if you're good at more than one gift? That's my issue. So all right, that's a really good question. You should be good at more than one thing. I think you will be great and exponentially phenomenal at usually one thing that applies to every single thing that you do, right? And so when we are multifaceted people that are forced to live very linear lives, if that makes any sense, right? And so that's the reason why I don't like people asking my 8-year-old daughter, what is she going to be when she grows up? Although she's, I think, pretty well traveled for an 8-year-old and has been to more tech conferences than probably the average 8-year-old. Her 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 outlook on life is very limited. So do not have a singular focused conversation with my child, right? Like, don't do that. I want her to be thinking about all the things. I want her to be thinking about being multiple things at multiple times. We have different stages of our life. And so what I'm saying that is because I think at 8 to 5, we start being asked, what is the one thing that you want to do when you grow up? Color, right? At 8, 5, you want to color. And then when you get into high school, what's the one thing that you want to major in college? What's the one college that you want to go to? You get to college, what's the one major that you're going to spend the next 4 years of your life and accruing debt to that one thing? And then what's the one career that you're going to go in? And if you are in your 30s, late 30s like me, you've had multiple lives, right? Multiple careers. We are multifaceted people that are interested in multiple things. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And I'm not saying that you don't have to focus. There are moments in your life where you absolutely have to choose, but it's not always one thing, right? And so when I talk about your zone of genius and when I take people to the genius jam like framework, it's literally understanding what your genius is and then spreading that all across all the things that you do, how you show up in your life. That is how you get clarity in, well, what is the thing that is going to bring me money? What is the thing that is going to be my happy place? What is the thing that I can spend time on with my family? Like, it allows you to then be able to do that, right? And so I've worn multiple hats. I still wear multiple hats, but my zone of genius as being a solutions driven communicator shows up in the exact same way in every single thing that I do, whether it was investing in Ice Cream Heaven 2 years ago, or it was running a gourmet popsicle company, 10 years ago, founding that 10 years ago, running a co-working space, investing in startups, advising startups, speaking. Like, my zone of genius is the same way and same thing in every instance of those things, right? Um, Helping my brother and my husband run a marketing company. Like, my genius shows up the exact same way in everything. If I was at the ice cream shop which I was 2 years ago, they literally told me, get the heck out of the way, right? Because if I was in there scooping ice cream, I would literally be getting in the way and I would not be standing in my gift. But bringing the partners together, communicating the message, putting the comms plan together, getting the buy-in, um, helping communicate the marketing, like, that was me in my genius and in my gift, but I could work on something that wasn't aligned with the other things that I was doing at the time, but I stayed in my gift and my genius, and that was my contribution to that thing that maybe on the surface didn't seem like it aligned, if that made any sense, right? And so once you figure out your gifts, you have to ask yourself, then what happens as a result of my gift, right? Same thing with the work over the years with like Center for Black Innovation and Black Tech. Like, my gift, I have a very specific gift. If I was at the front desk checking people in the co-working when we were doing co-working, I would literally be getting in the way and I would not be in my gift because I would be doing something that was misaligned with my biggest contribution, which is fundraising for the organization, bringing in partners, and evangelizing for the brand, right? That is where I needed to stay, and that is where I stayed. That allowed me to have the biggest contribution to everything else. If I was as much as I love teaching, but if I was in a classroom teaching coding classes like what we had to do in the very beginning, I ultimately would not be super serving the organization because I would be doing something that would stop me from doing the thing that was the biggest contribution to the organization. I hope you're following me on that, right? And so, and then your genius and your gift shows up in your personal life really the same way, right? And so when I volunteer for the things at my kids' school, like, I'm not baking cookies. I will go pick up cookies. I will go Instacart cookies, but I'm not baking cookies. Not that I'm above that or I can't. It just wouldn't be my highest value, right? To that work and that service, and it end up being not the thing that you're drawn to. So even look at when you volunteer for things and you're on committees, like, what is the type of work that you're drawn to? Usually it's very close, if not your actual genius and your gift. And that is how you end up doing multiple things, but you stay in the pocket of your actual gift at all times. And once you realize that, then things become a much more clear for you and much more easier, right? The other side of that is once you realize what your gift is, then there are things that happen as a result of you being in your gift. And that is something completely different, right? And so, by any means, people can say that I am a fundraiser. I fundraise, but raising money happens as a result of me being in my gift. It is not my zone of genius. I'd rather not have to do it, but it happens as a result of my genius. It is not, it will never be my genius. It happens as a result of that, right? Um, and there's so many ways that you can do that, right? So what is my genius? And then what do I want to happen as a result of my genius? Or this is my genius and this happens as a result of my genius. People are able to do this as a result of my genius, right? That is when you start using the different language and start asking yourself different questions, you'll get the clarity that you want. But you have to divorce yourself from what society has told us as this is the only way that you can think through your thing, right? Like you got to create that, you have to figure out that one gift and it can only be applied in this one way. No, absolutely not. You figure out your one gift and say, this is how I literally spread it across every single thing that I do. That's literally why I call my book Genius Jam, right? Like you figure out your genius and then you spread it across every single thing that you do. And then that is how you have alignment, right? There is no balance. I don't believe in work-life balance. It don't exist. You will be bald like me if you try to constantly be on this hamster wheel of work-life balance. You have to find your genius. You have to acknowledge it. You have to define what you want your life to look like as a result of you sitting and standing in it at all times. And then you're going to have to choose the 2 or 3 things that are most important to you, and everything else fits in where it fits in. Like that's my personal experience, right? I just don't think that you can have all the things that you want at all times. I think you can have pretty much anything that you want, but you cannot have it all the time. You have to choose. And so you have your focus moments, and then you have your moments where things are falling apart, right? And I've from my personal experience, I've felt like when one thing is going really, really well in my life, there's something that's falling apart because at one moment I need to be hyper focused on this one thing. And that means that I'm not really spending time on something else, right? And so I've limited the amount of things that I focus on, the amount of things that I do, so that I can be hyper focused and make sure that I'm staying in my gift at all times. And then when you do that, it helps you set some boundaries with people. It helps you get better boundaries with yourself. And then it just really gives you a vocabulary in which you can start operating in, and then a vocabulary in which you can start communicating to other people. Like, that's not my thing. Like, I could do it for you, but I'm telling you, other people are better in the world at doing this. There are other people on our team that should be doing this. And if I do this, I'm not the person that's going to get it done in 5 minutes. It might take me 5 days because it's not something that is a priority to me. It's not something that is in my gift, right? And so, Patrice, I hope I answered that question for you. Hold on, let me go down. Okay, so responsibility. Good morning, y'all. Is it Slay? Good morning. I was just on Meetup last night trying to build my network. I need to be a part of a team. I need them as much as they need me. Excuse me. You're absolutely right. I'm gonna come back to that in just a bit. Great points. More parents need to hear this. That pressure of one has been a struggle for me. Yeah, it's been a struggle for me too, right? And so I have learned some really hard punched in the gut lessons on building a team, not building a team fast enough, not building the right team at moments, like all of it, right? Probably the hardest lesson. And I think a lot of us are just, I feel like school does that to us a lot, right? And maybe culturally, your upbringing, it was just like, No, you're supposed to wear a superwoman or a Superman cape all the time. Man, take that cape off. Like, please, please take that cape off. You cannot do it by yourself. You should not do it by yourself. Like, why wouldn't you want to be able to share the success with other people? And I think some of that's ego of being able to say, like, I did this by myself. But the other is just like, why wouldn't you want to share that with other people? That journey. And then again, more than anything, like you cannot be 100% at everything. You will not be 100% at everything. You should not be 100% at everything. And you have to empower and bring along other people and other experts. And so, uh, hey, Christelle, evangelizing for the brand. I love that terminology. Hey, Miss Angel, I love that you are intentionally staying in your genius and your gifts. I know a lot of people get off track just for the sake of being that person or being seen. Yeah, you don't get any rewards for being busy. Like, you don't. You get exhaustion. You get a few nights stay in the hospital. Like, you don't get rewards for that. And I think there's a guilt associated with that. I think there is um humbling yourself for to ask for the help that you need. But that's where the strength really comes from, is acknowledging that you are not the end all be all, and that there are better people that are more qualified oftentimes to sit in that and do that thing with you, alongside you, or for you. And so, if anything today, take the permission to please take the cape off. You don't, I promise you don't get any rewards. Um, and speaking for someone who has spent weeks in the hospital, mostly after having my kids and still trying to do work, I realize like you don't get no cape for that, right? And if you don't take the break, no one else is going to tell you to take the break until you reach your breaking point. And by that time you've done the damage, right? And so definitely take the break. Definitely like listen to your body. Your body is always going to tell you what to do, oftentimes before your mind justifies, like, no, you can do a little bit longer. Like, no, take it off, right? I'm a big proponent of outsourcing, especially in your personal life, right? You can talk about genius level work and excellence and zone of incompetence, all that in your personal life too, more than like your work and your career, because sometimes that's where you need the biggest support, especially for women, right? Like, no, man, hire that cleaning person, even if it's one day a month, hire that cleaning person. Get that babysitter or that nanny, even if it's for 2 to 3 hours a day. Those 2 to 3 hours allow you to free yourself up to do something. Sometimes you just do it, you just need to rest, right? Find the cleanings, find the laundry like service, hire the virtual assistant. Like, it's never as expensive as you think it is, but you really need the help. No man is an island. And when people say, you need a village, right? Yes, for when you're raising kids, but yes, when you're an individual as well. And if you don't have the village around you, sometimes you got to pay for the village. And more people need to talk about that. You budget for the village, but sometimes you need to pay to assemble the village that you need for your personal life, and then also for your business and your career, so that you can stay focused more than anything else. And so, um, let's see. Yes, I've been battling this since January. What you said has been tremendously helpful. Thanks, Patrice. I'm gonna have to take some intentional time to think through it and figure out the result that I want. Who's Hey, Marley. It said busy equals being unaware and stressing yourself. Girl, that's a whole word and a sermon right there. Um, let's see. Who's Ty Sams? Girl, get you an assistant, right? And there's so 4 hour work week. I don't know. Whenever that book first came out, and it's been what, over 15 years now, I don't know. Was the first book that I read that I didn't even know what outsourcing was. I didn't know what virtual assistants were. Hey, Brennan, how's it going, man? You crossed my mind the other day. We need to chat. I didn't know what a virtual assistant was until 4 hour work week. And so when I'm laughing because I'm gonna tell y'all a story why when I read that book. But when I read that book, it completely changed everything for me. So if you haven't read that book, I feel like it's a classic at this point. You definitely need to. Um, but it was the first time I realized that like I could outsource things in my life for $4 an hour, right? And then upwards from there. But it was the first time I realized I could like build a remote business, like all of these things. And I was working a job that I hated at the time. And it was so funny because there was a script in there. And I mean, almost everyone's doing remote work now. Back then, that was like a hard sell, right? And there was a script that he had in there, like, how do you go to your boss and convince them to allow you to work from home? And I was just like, this book is amazing. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do all these things. I'm gonna take this script. And I remember meeting with my boss, and I was just like, I went through the script like word by word. I memorized that thing, and I was like, here's my case of like, I don't need to be. I was sharing a cubicle with two other people, um, at a internationally known like company, whatever. Anyways, and I went there and had the meeting. I went script word for word. I was like, this is gonna work. And she's I'll never forget. She said to me, she's like, Felicia, I believe that you could do it. I trust that you could do it. But if I let you do it, then I have to let everyone else on the team have that option too. And I don't want to open up that can of worms. And so the answer is no. And I was just like, but as it was just like he didn't have anything else in there if your boss told you no in the way that she told me. And I was like, anyway, it's just a funny story. But I was just like, I thought I was perfectly ready to go. And she's like, I trust that you can do it. And I'm like, yes, this worked. And she's like, but I can't let you do it because then everyone else would. And it was just like, wait, what page tells me what to say next? Anyways, other than that, it's a really good book. I think there are better books now that talk through outsourcing. There are websites, there are Facebook groups, there are all the things. But even if you can just hire someone for one day, maybe that's a personal assistant, maybe that's a virtual assistant, maybe that's like whatever you need, one day of just taking things off of your plate and see how freeing that can be for you, right? How much more you can get done, how you can get someone to work on like your 5 or 10 or $20 tasks so that you can work on your 100,000, 10,000, $1 million task, right? Like it completely changes everything. It duplicates and well quadruples or whatever like your time, your 24 hours now with an extra person turns into 48 hours. You get to leverage their hours because they're working on you. Imagine what you can get done. And so when you see people around you, you're like, how the heck do they do all those things? I promise you they're not doing all those things. Yeah, the book is called 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. I think it might have been his first book. I really like all of his books. I think Tools of the Titans is phenomenal. It's a massive book, but it's really, really good. But 4 Hour Work Week, if you are apprehensive about outsourcing, trying to figure out how to do it, I think that's a very good first starter book. The One Person Millionaire or the one, yeah, something like that. That's also a really good book about outsourcing. The founders of Basecamp, I cannot remember, or was it 43 Signals? I can't remember the name of their book, but they have a really good one as well. Excuse me, coming overcoming something from that I got from my son last week. I'm trying to look at the bookshelf, but 4 Hour Work Week for sure. If you've never read it, you just got to do it. Um, Jay said like the audio is also on YouTube is really good. Um, Tools of Titan is something that I also recommend. I'm currently working through The Artist's Way again. I have the book and then also the workbook, and so like I highly recommend that as well. And then I'll find that one person millionaire business or something like that. And I think that's it's a book, it's a very short read. It's a masterclass in outsourcing as well, of like how do you pretty much contract everything out, not have to deal with employees or anything like that, and run a systems-based business that does 7 figures plus a year without having to take on anyone as an employee full time. And so that was also all about outsourcing as well. And then there's a ton of outsourcing Facebook groups. I was running an outsourcing um, clubhouse room at one point. I really want to bring that back, but I don't want to bring it back without a co-host. So if anyone wants to co-host that with me, that with me. I would love to do that again on a regular basis, but running a clubhouse room by yourself is a lot of work. And so, but when I used to run that group, and Cassandra would help me from time to time. I think Danny would jump in as well. But it was mostly women, and man, I mean, there were tears that would happen in that group because of the guilt that is associated with asking for help, especially in your personal life, right? And once you have a family and once you have kids, like you literally run your life like a business. And so why wouldn't you look for the most efficient ways possible to do your thing? Why is it the responsibility of mostly the wife, right? Or whoever in the group in the relationship to do all of the things? Like it makes absolutely no sense. You don't have any time for yourself, you're stressed out, you're short-tempered. I don't want to do any of those. Like I don't want to be that person. I want to be able to actually enjoy my time with my kids. I want to be able to enjoy my time with my husband. I want to be able to enjoy my time with myself. And that requires you to outsource. And people think it's more expensive than it is. You don't have to commit to like any kind of nothing. TaskRabbit, if you have TaskRabbit in your city, man, I will find whatever I need in a minute. I'm hiring somebody on TaskRabbit. I'm looking at the hourly cost and say, okay, whatever I have to pay for this hour, it pales in comparison to this, this shelf sitting here for 6 months because we don't have time to put it together. If I need something delivered, courier service, like literally the technology is there to free up your time so that you can focus. I'm in million-dollar conversations all the time. I cannot be doing $10 tasks. Like, and it's not being like an asshole. It's not any of that. It's just recognizing that my time is very limited and that at this stage in my life and my career and what I need to contribute and what I need to bring back and how we need to eat, we eat what we kill as entrepreneurs, that like I have to stay in this space and I can empower people, I can support other small businesses by hiring them to do the thing that is their genius so that I can stay in mine for all the things that are not my thing, right? And so most of us do it. If you Postmates or you Uber, then you're already outsourcing. You are paying somebody else to deliver your food, pick up your food, deliver your food, and cook your food. You're already doing it, right? If you ride in the Uber, you are paying someone to take you from point A to point B. There have been plenty of times where I've literally could drive somewhere, but I needed to do a phone call. I needed to work on something on my laptop. It financially made more sense for me to not be driving for 30 minutes or an hour when I could be in the back working. All of these platforms, you think they're in the food business, you think Uber is in the transportation business, and I'm not even talking about the fact that they don't own some. They are in the time-saving business. They are in the time-saving business. That is the business that they're in. That is a commodity, and that is why they will continue to charge outrageous prices because they are saving you the only thing that you cannot get back, which is your time. We cannot get back our time when people waste our time. We are frustrated when people waste our time. And once you get to a certain level, all you are trying to do every single day is buy back your time in the smartest way possible. And so why not do that at each stage so that you can free yourself up so that you can actually enjoy the fruits of the labor of how hard you're working. Enjoy the actual business that you're creating. Enjoy the career that you're in. Like you have to be thinking smarter. You have to be thinking smarter. It doesn't benefit anyone to constantly be making struggle money and depressing money and grind money. Like there's no fun in that. Like I know we're in this culture where everyone's like hustle, hustle, hustle hard. Like no, like the reward is to actually be able to rest and let your money be working for you while you're doing it and for your team to be efficiently running and doing things for you so that you can focus on being able to always be able to support your team and to be able to build a startup and build a company where they don't have to worry if their check is going to come every 2 weeks because you were focused on bringing in the things that allow them to operate at their highest potential and super serve you and your mission and what you're trying to do. And that requires you to let go. that requires you to trust yourself and your team enough to let go. Most of this, I think, for CEOs, right, is about control and trusting yourself enough that you made the right decision, that you can bring on people who love what they do, are really good at what they do, and you trust them. Are they going to make mistakes? Absolutely. Do you make mistakes every day? Absolutely. But you can be able to learn from that, but you got to be able to trust yourself. And so, if you think about confidence, right? The root word of that is to confide. What does confide mean? It means to trust. Do you trust yourself? Do you trust the people on your team? And if you can say yes, then let the stuff go that you're holding on to that is of no benefit to you to hold on to those things. I'm saying that to y'all as I say it to myself too, right? And it's not just one thing where you snap your finger and all of a sudden you do it, but you can literally snap your finger and at least make the decision that you're going to change your approach. You're going to change your behavior. You're going to be able to let things go. You'll be able to trust yourself more. You'll be able to trust other people around you more, and that they can do the thing that they're supposed to do, and that you will do the thing that you're supposed to do so that everybody is able to win, right? And so when I kind of going back to why I started this conversation, I think almost an hour ago, about are you willing to stay in your gift long enough in order to see the rewards? It's that too, right? Do you trust yourself in the vision that you set? Do you trust yourself in the idea that you created long enough that you will see the reward? And in that trust of yourself, it's also in the trust of the people that you've brought on board with you, um, to do their thing to help you contribute to your gifts. But I think if you're always kind of double touching, jumping in and out of your gift, jumping in and out of your genius, people around you see that. And when they see that and they feel that, they don't want to be along in the journey for you. They want a confident leader. They want someone that truly with conviction believes in the thing that they're doing so that they can believe and trust you so that they can trust themselves, right? People around you are always borrowing your belief and your vision. And so you have to say it loud and often, and you have to take ownership of that at all times. That's not always an easy thing because when things don't go right and you've been punched in the gut with your ideas, sometimes it's really hard to be able to do so. But you also have to be unwavering about what you want, right? And unwavering about your why and the reason that you're doing the thing that you're doing. And people feel that, people see that, they acknowledge that, right? And so, kind of going back to what I said earlier about Dave Chappelle and that conversation that he had with his dad about setting that line, setting the price that you are willing to pay for success and setting the price that you're willing to pay to stay in your gift, knowing when you get to that line, you can pivot and do something else. But at minimum, do that today. Say, this is the thing that I want. And if it ever gets more expensive than the cost that I'm willing to pay in order to achieve that, I can get out. But in the interim of that, if I'm nowhere near that price that I'm willing to pay for the success that I want, then you got to sit in that, no matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter how stressful it is, no matter how many no's you've gotten. I've gotten so many no's in the past 2 months on something that I'm working on, and I was having that conversation with my husband. I was like, I don't like I something is misaligned, right? And I'm trying to figure out what it is. I don't know what it is yet, but it can be very easy for me to say, you know what? F it, right? Like I'm gonna throw this thing in the trash. I will figure out something else. And I'm like, no, I don't know what it is. I'm not going to force myself to figure it out. It's going to come. There are some changes that I'm going to make. Everything is an iterative process. And I'm going to sit in this long enough, as uncomfortable as it is, as much as I can't like share a win because there's no win in it right now. But I am going to exhaust all possibilities before I say, you know what, this isn't working, right? Trying to get partners on this very specific thing, it's not happening for me right now in the way that I need it to happen, right? And there's a sense of urgency that I personally have that oftentimes people that you're pitching to do not have, right? And so staying in it long enough to figure out what it is where I am literally sitting in it in this moment. And it's really uncomfortable because I'm like, this should be easier. So why isn't this clicking, right? And that's going back through your notes. That's why it's so important to take notes in meetings. It's so important to be in a meeting with other people. Derek and I used to do pitch meetings all the time together. And a friend of ours years ago, and this is like back when we were running the popsicle company and like we were pitching for like some partners. And I'm very comfortable communicating. I'm very comfortable selling. And at the time, my husband was not, right? And I was like, no, both of us need to be able to like tag team it and like have this like be able to both attack it from both sides. And what he said to me, Rudy, and he was just like, no, someone needs to talk and someone needs to listen. And I was like, no, no, no. Like both of us need to be able to like do the pitch and like be perfect at it. He's like, no, someone needs to talk and someone needs to listen. And I didn't receive what he was saying to me in that moment. Excuse me, but I was able to get it like a few weeks later, right? And he was right. And so when you're pitching and when you're whatever you're doing, like someone needs to talk and someone needs to listen. And so we would tag team that way. Um, and when I say that is like when you are doing the talking and the pitching, you don't pick up on certain clues. But the person that's in the room that's listening, they do. That's what you should train them to do. That's what their job should be. Um, in that moment, right? Like not everyone needs to be the one that's pitching. Sometimes the most powerful position is a person that's on your team, that's in that meeting with you, that's listening as well. Because they'll pick up on body language that you may not pick up on, right? Like, man, when you said this, that person leaned back. They didn't like kind of lean in. And that says something. Did you realize that when you said this one thing, they asked this question, but you had gave this other response, right? Or sometimes you'll need that person just to be like, man, you did a really good job. Or hear some constructive criticism on like how you can change that up. Or they said this one thing or they did this other thing, or did you realize that they kept picking up their phone? Like these are all things that oftentimes you don't realize if you're like the one that's speaking, you pick up on clues. And so please stay in your gift as long as you possibly can. Please stay in your genius as long as you possibly can, until it gets more expensive than the cost that you were willing to pay in order to achieve your success. And at that time, you can get out. And at that time, you can pivot if you need to. But you have to be willing to sit in the discomfort long enough. You have to be willing to have the unsexy Instagram moments long enough. You have to be willing to do the deep work long enough in order to actually receive the payoffs of your gifts. And if you're not willing to do that, if you don't understand that disruption follows your best intention, you will quit in the middle of your assignment and you will never see the fruits of your labor pay off. Um, I'm sitting in something that really paid off from something that I started about 8 years ago, and you'll hear more about that soon, but staying in the pocket of it long enough for it to pay off, I didn't always see that, and it wasn't always easy, but I'm seeing that on something right now, and then on this other thing, I'm like, I have not sat in the discomfort of it long enough, and I'm being a little impatient about the reward that I wanna get. And so as much as I'm saying that to y'all, I'm also saying that to myself of, like, mentally stepping back just a little bit to figure out what's out of alignment, in our pitching and in some things that we're doing so that, I can actually see the reward or know how we need to course correct because something's off, right? And so sit in it long enough to be able to do that. And so, disruption always follows intention. It's something that my mentor Myron says quite a bit, right? So disruption always follows intention. And if you don't realize that pattern, you'll quit in the middle of your assignment. And so anytime you set out to with intention to do something, to be something, there is going to be some sort of disruption that happens in your life as a result of this new way of doing things, this new approach, this new path that you're going to create. There is something that is going to test you. If you're familiar with like the hero's journey, and I cannot remember the author right now, but like the hero's journey is actually how most movies are made, right? Like there is someone that makes a decision to go out on this new path. They're going to be met with a series of obstacles along the way that are going to test them to see if they really want to be able to do the thing. All of us are on our hero's journey. Like all of us are going from zero to hero, right? And along that hero's journey, once you set your intention, there's going to be some sort of disruption that happens to you. And if you don't realize that, if you don't acknowledge that, and then if you don't um work through and push past that, it will stop you, right? And so what that's saying is just to realize that once you say, this is the thing that I want to do, there's some shit gonna happen, right? And probably multiple things that are going to happen to you. And you have to recognize that's what it's saying, is just recognize that once you go through this thing is gonna happen. I will probably come back a few days, I don't know, next session and actually talk about the upper limiting problem that Gay Hendricks actually talks about a lot, because that is something that stops a lot of us, right? Like once you start getting along your path, you can self-sabotage. And so I'm not talking about self-sabotage. I'm talking about external disruptions that happen to you is one part. But if you're not careful, you will self-sabotage. And that's a whole other type of disruption and a whole other type of obstacle that you have to be very, very mindful of. And so in the video, I don't know, I think I may have posted it a few months ago, but I have that title. I think intention, disruption follows intention is the title of it. The difference between an obstacle and a distraction is something else that you also have to be mindful of, right? And so Travian Shorters talks about this a lot, the founder of Be Me. And, an obstacle is you cannot you cannot move forward until you address the thing, right? Along the path that you are on. You cannot move forward until you address the thing as an obstacle. A distraction is if you address the thing, you will be taken off your tracks and you will never move forward, right? And so know the difference between, am I dealing with an obstacle or am I dealing with a distraction? And then being able to move forward from there, right? And so knowing that and defining that disruption that's happening to you, is that an obstacle that I need to address and kind of move this thing out the way so that I can go along my path? Or is this something that if I address this thing, then I'm not going to be able to move forward? And I think for a lot of us, that's the critics in our life, right? Like if I stoop down to addressing the naysayers, the haters, the doubters, or whatever, that time that I take to go down in the gutter with them, I am going to be taken off of my track and I may not get back. If I absorb what they are saying to me, I may not get back because then I'm going to internalize that. An obstacle is like, man, the client decided to go in a different way, or the customer decided to go in a different way. Like, the website crashed today, or my developer is 3 weeks late, or this investor decided to go in a different direction. That obstacle can be turned into an opportunity if you look at it that way. But that obstacle, you have to address that thing. And once you address that thing, your path becomes clear again. And so knowing the difference between the two is really, really, really important. And then not self-sabotaging when you are along your path. It's a whole other conversation that we have to have, right? And so I will promise to come back with that conversation because I think it's really important. And I think many of us self-sabotage in ways that we do not even realize. And I do that quite a bit. And I was just like, why? Why the heck did I do that? Like, why did I do that? Oh, because like when you start to level up, it feels really uncomfortable. And because it's something that you've never done before, the quickest thing that we want to do is kind of fight or flight. Are you going to fight this thing, or are you going to fly back to the level in which you were comfortable? The level in which you're not really seen, but you're seen, but you're not seen. The level in which there are lower expectations of you is really comfortable to be in, because then you don't have to rock the boat. then you're not responsible for delivering on this new level that you asked for, right? And so, and I will see y'all later this week. Bye.